In high school, they told him to cover his mouth when he talked. Said his smile was rotten. Said he was poor. Said no one would ever love him. Except one girl. She saw brilliance where they saw shame. Then he disappeared. 6 years later, she sees him again. Not as the pathetic boy but someone of relevance. And the same boy who mocked him is now sweating in a business meeting. Asking for a deal. What would you do if you were in his shoes? Before we proceed into the full story, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support. The first time Lily Washington saw Min-Jae Kim, he was hunched over his textbook in the back corner of advanced chemistry, one hand pressed firmly against his mouth as if holding back words that might escape. She noticed everything, the way his shoulders curved inward like he was trying to disappear, the way his brilliant answers came out muffled behind his palm, the way his eyes darted away whenever someone turned in his direction. "What's wrong with that guy?" whispered Sarah Chen, sliding into the seat next to Lily during lunch break. "Nothing's wrong with him," Lily replied, watching Min-Jae navigate through the cafeteria with a precision that spoke of someone who had mapped out every possible route to avoid confrontation. He carried only a water bottle, never food, and found the most isolated table in the furthest corner. "Come on, he's weird. Never talks, never smiles, always covering his face like he's got some contagious disease." Lily's dark eyes tracked Min-Jae's movements with growing interest. She had transferred to Seoul International Academy 3 weeks ago, and in that time, she had observed the intricate social hierarchies that govern teenage life. Min-Jae existed outside of it all, not by choice, but by force. The truth revealed itself during 4th period physics when Young Woo-bin, the self-appointed king of their class, decided to make his daily entertainment out of Min-Jae's misery. "Hey Kim, why don't you answer Professor Lee's question?" "Oh wait, you can't open your mouth without fumigating the whole classroom." The class erupted in snickers. Min-Jae's hand instinctively covered his mouth, his eyes fixed on his desk as his ears burned red. "I heard his family can't even afford basic hygiene. That's what happens when your father gambles away the house money." "That's enough," Professor Lee warned half-heartedly, but the damage was done. Min-Jae had shrunk even further into himself, and Lily felt something fierce and protective rise in her chest. When class ended and the hallway filled with the usual chaos of students rushing to their next period, Woo-bin cornered Min-Jae near the lockers. "Seriously though, Kim, you should see a dentist." "Oh wait, you probably can't afford one." That's when Lily stepped into the circle that had formed around them, her 5'8" frame commanding attention as she faced Woo-bin with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question her worth. "You know what I find interesting, Woo-bin?" Her voice carried a slight American accent that made everyone lean in closer. "How someone so concerned with other people's teeth clearly never learned to brush their own personality." The hallway went silent. Woo-bin's face flushed as several students suppressed grins. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. At least Min-Jae has intelligence going for him. What's your excuse for being so thoroughly mediocre?" The way she said his name, Min-Jae, with careful pronunciation and genuine respect, made something shift in the atmosphere. She wasn't just defending him, she was seeing him. Woo-bin sputtered for a comeback, but Lily had already turned away, her attention shifting to Min-Jae with an expression that was both gentle and unwavering. "Walk with me," she said, and it wasn't a question. Min-Jae followed, his steps uncertain as they made their way toward the library. Once they were alone among the stacks of books, Lily finally spoke. "I'm Lily, in case you were wondering. And before you thank me or apologize or do whatever polite thing you're thinking of doing, I want you to know something." She turned to face him fully, forcing him to meet her gaze. "I didn't defend you because I felt sorry for you. I defended you because what he said was wrong, and I don't let wrong things slide." Min-Jae's hand was still covering his mouth, but his eyes, those deep brown eyes that seemed to hold entire conversations, were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her heart skip. "You can put your hand down," she said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't understand," he whispered, his voice barely audible. It's not just about being poor. Then help me understand. The vulnerability in her voice, the way she leaned closer instead of backing away, broke something open in Min-Jae's carefully constructed walls. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered his hand. The decay was extensive, visible even with his mouth barely open. Years of untreated dental problems had left his smile a battlefield of pain and shame. But Lily didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't change her expression at all. "Okay," she said simply. "Now I understand why you carry that pain. But I need you to understand something too." She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her vanilla perfume, close enough that when she spoke, her words felt like secrets meant only for him. "You're the smartest person in every room you walk into. You solve calculus problems that make our teacher double-check his own work. You read philosophy for fun and quote Nietzsche like it's poetry. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to make sure that brilliant mind of yours gets the respect it deserves. Starting now." That was the beginning of everything. Their study sessions began innocently enough, afternoon meetings in the library where Lily would challenge Min-Jae's understanding of complex theories while he helped her navigate the more challenging aspects of advanced chemistry. But somewhere between discussions of molecular structures and philosophical debates, something deeper began to grow. "You know what I think?" Lily said one afternoon, looking up from her textbook to find Min-Jae staring at her with that intense focus he reserved for particularly difficult equations. "What?" he asked, forgetting to cover his mouth in his curiosity. "I think you use your intelligence as armor. You let people see how smart you are so they won't look at anything else." Min-Jae felt exposed, like she had reached inside his chest and pulled out his most carefully guarded secret. "And what if I do? Then I think you're selling yourself short." She leaned across the table, close enough that he could see the golden flecks in her dark eyes. "There's so much more to you than just your mind, Min-Jae. I wish you could see what I see." "What do you see?" The question hung between them like a challenge, heavy with possibility and fear in equal measure. "I see someone who thinks before he speaks because words matter to him. I see someone who observes everything because he cares about understanding the world around him. I see someone who's been taught to hide his light, but it shines anyway." Min-Jae's breath caught in his chest. No one had ever spoken to him like this, with such direct honesty and warmth. "Lily. And I see someone who deserves better than what this place has given him." They were interrupted by a group of students entering the library, forcing them to return to their books, but the tension between them had shifted into something electric and unspoken. As weeks passed, their connection deepened in small, stolen moments. Lily would find reasons to brush his hand when reaching for a pencil. Min-Jae would leave thoughtful notes in her locker, quotes from books she had mentioned loving. They developed a private language of shared glances and inside jokes that made the rest of the world fade into background noise. "You made me laugh today," Lily said one afternoon as they walked to her bus stop. "I make you laugh every day." "No, I mean really laugh. The kind that comes from deep in your chest and feels like sunshine." Min-Jae stopped walking, turning to face her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "No one's ever told me that my laugh sounds like sunshine." Then no one's ever really listened to it. The way she looked at him in that moment, like he was something precious and worth protecting, made Min-Jae forget every cruel word that had ever been spoken to him. For the first time in years, he let himself smile without hiding it. "There it is," Lily whispered, stepping closer. "There's that beautiful smile." "It's not beautiful, Lily. You know it's not." "Says who?" "Wu Bin. Some kids who've never experienced real hardship in their lives." She reached up, her fingers almost touching his face before she caught herself. "Beauty isn't about perfection, Min-Jae. It's about authenticity. And when you smile like that, genuinely happy, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen." The space between them crackled with tension, with all the words they hadn't said and feelings they hadn't acknowledged. Min-Jae wanted to tell her that she had changed everything for him, that her friendship had become the best part of his day, that somewhere along the way he had fallen completely and hopelessly in love with her fierce spirit and generous heart. But before he could find the words, her bus arrived, breaking the spell that had settled over them. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said, but something in her tone suggested she was promising much more than just another day of shared classes. "Tomorrow," he agreed, watching her go and knowing with certainty that he would count the hours until he saw her again. Their relationship continued to deepen through stolen moments and meaningful conversations. Lily had a way of drawing him out of his shell, of making him forget to hide behind his hand when he laughed, of challenging him to see himself through her eyes instead of through the lens of his insecurities. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she said one afternoon as they sat in their favorite corner of the library. "Why?" "Because I want to know all of you, not just the parts you think are safe to share." Min-Jae was quiet for so long that Lily thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I write poetry. About pain, about shame, about feeling invisible. But lately..." He looked at her with such intensity that it made her heart race. "Lately I've been writing about hope." "What changed?" "You did." The simple honesty of his answer hit her like a physical force. Lily had always prided herself on being strong, independent, not the type to get swept away by romantic gestures or pretty words. But something about Min-Jae's quiet sincerity undid her completely. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Anything. I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do. You notice things other people miss, you care about things other people ignore. You make me want to be better, smarter, more thoughtful." "Lily. I'm not finished." She leaned closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You've been hiding for so long that you forgot what it feels like to be truly seen. But I see you, Min-Jae. All of you. And I think you're extraordinary." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and promise. Min-Jae felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, one step away from falling into something he might never recover from. But before either of them could cross that line, before the words that would change everything could be spoken, Min-Jae's phone buzzed with a message that would shatter their carefully constructed world. His father had been offered a construction job in the Philippines. The pay was good, better than anything he could find in Seoul, but it meant leaving immediately. It meant starting over in a new country with nothing but hope and desperation. "We're moving," Min-Jae told Lily the next day, his voice hollow with shock and grief. "What do you mean moving? Like, to a different neighborhood? Different country? My father got a job offer abroad. We leave next week." Lily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Next week? But that's not enough time, we haven't." "Haven't what?" She stared at him, at this boy who had become so essential to her happiness, and realized they had been living in borrowed time all along. "We haven't said the things we need to say." Min-Jae's eyes filled with something that looked like regret and longing combined. "Maybe it's better this way. You'll find someone else, someone who can give you what you deserve." "And what if I don't want someone else? What if I want you?" The words hung between them like a confession, brave and terrifying and too late. "Lily, look at me. Really look at me. I'm broken in ways that can't be fixed. I come from nothing, I have nothing to offer you. You're wrong." She stepped closer, her voice fierce with conviction. "You're not broken, you're wounded. And wounds heal, Min-Jae. But even if they didn't, even if you stayed exactly as you are right now, you'd still be worth loving." "Don't," he whispered, backing away from her words and the hope they represented. "Don't make this harder than it already is." "Why?" "Because you're scared? Because it's easier to run away than to fight for something good? Because I love you too much to watch you realize you've made a mistake." The confession hung in the air between them like a bridge neither of them had the courage to cross. Lily felt tears sting her eyes, not just for what they were losing, but for what they had never allowed themselves to have. Loving me isn't a mistake, Min-Jae. Giving up on us before we've even tried, that's the mistake. But he was already shaking his head, already retreating into the shell she had worked so hard to draw him out of. I have to go. My family is waiting. He turned and walked away, leaving Lily standing alone in the hallway with tears streaming down her face and a heart that felt like it had been torn in half. The last week of school passed in a blur of awkward silences and stolen glances. Min-Jae avoided her as much as possible, but Lily caught him watching her sometimes with such longing in his eyes that it made her chest ache. On his final day, she slipped a note into his locker. You told me once that you write poetry about hope. I hope you keep writing it. I hope you remember that someone believed in you completely, even when you couldn't believe in yourself. And I hope that someday, when you're ready to stop running from good things, you'll find your way back to me. Min-Jae found the note after his last class, after he had already said goodbye to the few teachers who would miss him, after he had walked through the halls of Seoul International Academy for the final time. He read it 3 times before carefully folding it and putting it in his wallet, right next to his passport and plane ticket to a new life he wasn't sure he wanted. That night, as his family packed their few belongings into boxes that would follow them across the ocean, Min-Jae wrote one last poem. It was about a girl who saw light in dark places, who spoke truth in a world full of lies, who loved fearlessly even when that love wasn't returned. It was about regret and possibility and the way some people change your entire understanding of what it means to be alive. It was about Lily, and it was goodbye. 6 years later, Lily Washington stood in the ballroom of the Seoul Convention Center, nursing a glass of champagne and wondering why she had agreed to attend her company's tech summit in South Korea. She worked for a global consulting firm now, specializing in emerging technologies and startup ventures, but being back in Seoul brought memories she had spent years trying to forget. The keynote speaker was some young entrepreneur who had revolutionized affordable dental technology, making reconstructive procedures accessible to low-income families across Asia. It was exactly the kind of story that usually inspired her, innovation driven by social conscience rather than pure profit. But tonight she felt restless, disconnected from the enthusiastic crowd around her. She was considering leaving early when the lights dimmed and the presenter took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO of Smile Forward Technologies, Min-Jae Kim. Lily's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the suddenly silent ballroom. Because walking onto that stage, confident and elegant in a perfectly tailored suit, was the boy who had broken her heart 6 years ago. Except he wasn't a boy anymore. Min-Jae had grown into his height, his shoulders broader now, his movements sure and purposeful. His hair was styled perfectly, his suit expensive, his smile. His smile was perfect. Bright white teeth, no hint of the decay that had once caused him such shame. But it was still his smile, still carried that hint of thoughtfulness that had first drawn her attention all those years ago. Good evening, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system. 6 years ago, I was a teenager who couldn't afford basic dental care. Tonight, I want to tell you how that experience led me to create technology that has restored smiles for over 50,000 people across 12 countries. Lily stood frozen as Min-Jae told his story with the same intelligence and passion she remembered, but with a confidence that was entirely new. He spoke about shame and transformation, about using personal pain to fuel innovation, about building a company that prioritized accessibility over profit margins. The boy who used to hide his smile, she whispered to herself, watching him command the attention of hundreds of industry professionals like he had been born to it. When the presentation ended and the crowd erupted in applause, Lily found herself pushing through the throng of people trying to reach the stage. She needed to see him up close, to confirm that this transformation was real and not some elaborate dream. But by the time she reached the front of the room, Min-Jae was surrounded by investors and journalists, all eager to secure a piece of his attention and success. Excuse me, she said to his assistant, a polished young woman with a tablet and an efficient smile. I'm an old friend of Mr. Kim's. Could you tell him that Lily Washington would like to speak with him? The assistant glanced at her list. I'm sorry, but Mr. Kim's schedule is completely booked for the evening. Perhaps you could contact his office to arrange a meeting? Lily felt a familiar frustration rise in her chest, the same feeling she used to get when watching Min-Jae hide in corners while less deserving people claimed center stage. Just tell him Lily from Seoul International Academy is here. Trust me, he'll want to know. Something in her tone must have convinced the assistant, because she nodded and approached Min-Jae during a brief lull in the conversation surrounding him. Lily watched as the woman whispered in his ear, watched as Min-Jae's entire body went still, watched as his eyes searched the crowd until they found hers. For a moment, time stopped. 6 years collapsed into nothing, and they were teenagers again, staring at each other across a library table, seeing and being seen in ways that had nothing to do with physical appearance. Min-Jae excused himself from his admirers and walked toward her with the same purposeful stride she had noticed on stage. When he stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and sophisticated, Lily felt her heart rate spike. Lily. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a question and an accusation all at once. Hello, Min-Jae. Congratulations on your success. Thank you. His eyes searched her face like he was trying to confirm she was real. You look different. Older. Beautiful. You look beautiful. The simple honesty in his voice, so familiar and yet changed by years and confidence, made her breath catch. Can we talk? She asked. Somewhere private? Min-Jae glanced back at the crowd of people waiting for his attention, then at his assistant who was hovering nearby with barely concealed anxiety. Give me 10 minutes to wrap up here. Wait for me? It was the same question he used to ask when they were teenagers and he needed reassurance that she wouldn't disappear while he was gone. I'll wait. 20 minutes later, they found themselves on the hotel's rooftop terrace, the lights of Seoul spreading out below them like scattered diamonds. The October air was crisp, and Lily pulled her jacket closer around her shoulders. I can't believe you're here, Min-Jae said, leaning against the railing beside her. In Seoul, I mean. At my presentation. I work for Morrison Consulting now. We specialize in tech startups and emerging markets. So you were there professionally, not because I was looking for you, if that's what you're asking. The words came out harsher than she intended, but 6 years of unanswered questions and unresolved feelings had left their mark. Min-Jae nodded, accepting the sting in her voice as deserved. You have every right to be angry with me. Do I? Because I've been trying to figure that out for 6 years. Are you angry when someone protects you from making a mistake, or are you angry when someone makes that choice for you without asking? Lily. No, let me finish. She turned to face him fully, and in the moonlight she could see both the boy she had loved and the man he had become. You left without giving us a chance. You decided what I could and couldn't handle, what I did and didn't deserve. You made a choice for both of us based on your own fears. I was protecting you. From what? From loving someone who was struggling? From being with someone who didn't fit your idea of what I deserved? Min-Jae was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the railing as he stared out at the city below. Do you want to know what happened when we left Seoul? Tell me. My father's job fell through 3 weeks after we arrived. We spent 2 months living in a hostel, eating 1 meal a day, applying for any work we could find. I spent my 18th birthday cleaning hotel bathrooms for cash under the table. Lily felt her anger begin to soften, replaced by the familiar ache she used to feel whenever she saw him in pain. Min-Jae. But you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the poverty or the uncertainty or even the shame. It was knowing that I had left the best thing in my life behind because I was too much of a coward to fight for it. He turned to look at her then, and she saw 6 years of regret and growth and determination in his eyes. I thought about you every day. I wrote you letters I never sent. I checked your social media until I memorized every photo. I built my entire company around the idea that maybe, someday, I could become someone worthy of the faith you had in me. You were always worthy, Min-Jae. That was never the question. Wasn't it? You were confident, beautiful, brilliant, from a family that could give you opportunities one couldn't even dream of. I was broken in ways I didn't know how to fix. And now? Are you fixed? Min-Jae laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now I have money and success and perfect teeth. I can afford therapy and dental care and all the things that poverty took away from me. But the fundamental question remains the same. Which is? He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the vulnerability in his eyes despite all his newfound confidence. Am I worthy of someone who loved me when I had nothing to offer but broken dreams and borrowed hope? The question hung between them like a challenge. Lily felt the weight of 6 years, of all the relationships that had failed because no one measured up to the boy who had seen her truly and loved her completely despite his own fears. Do you want to know what I think? Tell me. I think you're asking the wrong question. Min-Jae frowned. What do you mean? The question isn't whether you're worthy of my love, Min-Jae. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept it. Before he could respond, before he could retreat into doubt and self-protection, Lily stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. I can feel how fast your heart is beating. Just like it used to in the library when we sat too close together and pretended we didn't know what was happening between us. Lily, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has changed. You're right. Too much has changed. We're not teenagers anymore, we're not confused about what we want or what we're capable of handling. I'm not the same girl who let you walk away without fighting harder, and you're not the same boy who was too scared to believe in good things. She moved closer, close enough that her breath warmed his skin when she spoke. So let me ask you again, Min-Jae. Are you brave enough to accept that someone loves you, not because of what you've achieved or how you've changed, but because of who you've always been? The tension between them was electric, 6 years of separation and longing compressed into this single moment of possibility. Min-Jae looked down at her with an expression that was part wonder, part terror, and entirely love. And if I say yes? If I tell you that I've never stopped loving you, not for a single day in 6 years? What then? Then we find out what we could have been if we hadn't let fear win the first time. Min-Jae reached up and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing the curve of her cheekbones like he was memorizing her all over again. I used to dream about this moment. About seeing you again, about having the chance to tell you everything I was too afraid to say before. So tell me now. I love you, Lily Washington. I loved you when I was 18 and broken and convinced I wasn't good enough for you. I love you now, successful and confident and still convinced I don't deserve you. I'll probably love you when we're old and gray and arguing about whose turn it is to take out the garbage. Lily laughed, the sound bright and joyful in the cool night air. That's quite a commitment, considering we haven't even had a proper first date yet. Then let me remedy that. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. And the night after that. And every night after that until you get tired of hearing me tell you how grateful I am that you saw something worth loving in a boy who had forgotten how to believe in himself. I'll never get tired of that. They were interrupted by the sound of Min-Jae's phone buzzing insistently in his pocket. He ignored it until it stopped, then started again immediately. You should answer that, Lily said, stepping back reluctantly. Min-Jae glanced at the screen and his expression shifted, becoming more focused and alert. It's my assistant. There's apparently an urgent matter that needs my attention. Go ahead. I'll wait. Hello, Ji-young, what's the emergency? Lily couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Min-Jae's expression change from annoyance to interest to something that looked almost like anticipation. Is he still here? In the hotel? A pause. No, don't reschedule anything. Tell him I'll meet with him now. He hung up and turned to Lily with an expression she couldn't quite read. I have to handle something, but it shouldn't take long. It's actually rather perfect timing. What do you mean? Remember Young Woo Bin from school? The name hit Lily like a physical blow. Your bully? What about him? He works for a marketing company that's been trying to secure a partnership with my firm for months. Apparently he's here at the hotel, insisting on a last-minute meeting tonight. Lily felt something cold settle in her stomach. And you're going to meet with him? Oh yes, Min-Jae said, and his smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I definitely want to meet with him. The question is, do you want to watch? What are you planning? Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would get us in trouble or make the news. Just a simple business meeting between old schoolmates. But the way he said it, with quiet confidence and just a hint of dark satisfaction, made Lily shiver. I want to watch. Then stay close and try not to look too amused when this goes exactly the way I think it will. They made their way back downstairs to the hotel's business center, where Ji-young was waiting with a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit. Lily recognized Woo Bin immediately, though the years hadn't been as kind to him as they had been to Min-Jae. He looked older, softer around the edges, with the slightly desperate air of someone who hadn't quite achieved the success he thought he deserved. Mr. Kim, Woo Bin said, standing up quickly as they approached. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me on such short notice. I know how valuable your time is. Of course, Min-Jae replied smoothly. I always have time for old friends. There was something in the way he emphasized the word friends that made Woo Bin's smile falter slightly. Please, sit, Min-Jae gestured to the conference table. Tell me about this partnership proposal. As Woo Bin launched into his presentation, stumbling slightly over statistics and projections, Lily watched Min-Jae with fascination. He listened with apparent interest, asked thoughtful questions, and gave every impression of being a successful businessman considering a legitimate opportunity. But she could see the calculation behind his eyes, the way he was letting Woo Bin dig himself deeper into desperation with every passing minute. This sounds like a substantial investment, Min-Jae said when Woo Bin finished his pitch. My company would be taking on significant risk for what appears to be minimal return. But the exposure, the market reach, could be achieved through any number of established firms with better track records and more competitive rates. Woo Bin's face flushed red. Mr. Kim, I understand your concerns, but I think if you really knew me, if you understood my background. Oh, I know exactly who you are, Min-Jae said quietly. The question is, do you know who I am? Something in his tone made Woo Bin look at him more carefully, and Lily watched as recognition slowly dawned in his eyes. Min-Jae? Min-Jae Kim from Seoul International Academy? The very same. Woo Bin's mouth fell open as he stared at the polished, successful man sitting across from him. I don't understand. How did you? I mean, when did you? When did I stop being the poor kid with bad teeth that you used to torment for sport? The words were spoken with such calm precision that they hit harder than any shout would have. That was a long time ago. We were just kids, you know. Kids do stupid things. Min-Jae agreed. They do. Like assuming that circumstances are permanent. Like mistaking temporary poverty for permanent worthlessness. Woo Bin was sweating now, clearly recognizing that this meeting was not going the way he had hoped. Look, if this is about high school, I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I was young and stupid and now you're older and hoping I'll forget how you treated me because you need something from me. Min-Jae leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, completely in control. Here's what's interesting about success, Woo Bin. It doesn't just change how other people see you, it changes how clearly you can see them. 6 years ago, your opinion of me mattered. It hurt when you mocked me, when you made me feel ashamed of things beyond my control. He paused, letting the words sink in. But now? Now your opinion is just noise. Meaningless static from someone who peaked in high school and never learned that cruelty is the calling card of the deeply mediocre. Lily felt her heart race as she watched Min-Jae dismantle Woo Bin with nothing but calm, precise honesty. So let me ask you this, Min-Jae continued. What exactly are you offering me that I can't get elsewhere, from people who didn't spend their teenage years trying to make me feel subhuman. We have competitive rates, and our market research is available from a dozen other firms who haven't spent years practicing casual cruelty. Min-Jae stood up, extending his hand with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Thank you for the presentation, Woo-bin. It was illuminating. Wait, does that mean? It means exactly what you think it means. Woo-bin stared at him for a moment longer, then gathered his materials with shaking hands. You know what? I remember you differently. I remember you being kind, forgiving. I guess success really does change people. Min-Jae's smile widened, becoming genuinely amused. Oh, I'm still kind. I'm still forgiving. I just learned the difference between kindness and weakness. Tonight, I'm choosing to be kind to myself for the first time in years. After Woo-bin left, clearly understanding that his company would not be receiving a partnership offer, Min-Jae turned to Lily with an expression that was part satisfaction, part relief. How do you feel? She asked. Lighter, he said immediately. Like I just put down a weight I didn't realize I was still carrying. No regrets? None. He wasn't looking for forgiveness or trying to make amends. He was looking for profit and hoping I'd forgotten how he treated me. Lily stepped closer, reaching up to adjust his tie with fingers that trembled slightly. That was incredibly attractive, watching you handle that with such grace and control. Attractive? Devastatingly so. The heat in her voice made Min-Jae's breath catch. Lily. What? I know we said we'd take this slow, get to know each other again, but right now, looking at you, remembering everything we used to mean to each other. Yes? Right now I want to kiss you until we both forget that we ever spent a single day apart. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she looked up at him, at this man who had grown into everything she had always known he could be. Then why don't you? Min-Jae didn't need to be asked twice. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with 6 years of longing and regret and hope all tangled together. It was desperate and gentle and perfect, the kiss of two people who had found their way back to each other against all odds. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and slightly dizzy, Min-Jae rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right this time, he whispered. I want to court you properly, take you on dates, meet your family, build something real and lasting with you. I want that too, Lily whispered back. But first, I want you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter how scared you get, no matter how unworthy you think you are, you won't run away from this. From us. Min-Jae looked into her eyes, seeing his entire future reflected there, and made the easiest promise of his life. I promise. No more running, no more hiding, no more letting fear make decisions for us. Good, Lily said, pulling him down for another kiss. Because I've waited 6 years for my happy ending, and I'm not letting it slip away again. As they held each other on that rooftop terrace, surrounded by the lights of Seoul and the promise of tomorrow, both of them understood that this was more than just a reunion. It was a redemption, a second chance, a love story that had always been meant to have a happy ending. And somewhere in the city below them, young Woo-bin was learning that some people are worth underestimating only once, and Min-Jae Kim was no longer one of them. Thanks for watching.